Antonio Brown has been assigned every single clown gift that the internet could find. My initial thought was that his behavior reminded me of a very specific, very famous clown in particular. Maybe that sounds crazy, but imagine me trying not to justify, but just to understand each move that AB has been making. First, I thought it was a money play. Then, it looked like a power play. Oh, no. This is a revenge play. That's what this is. But with every passing hour, as new AB news continues to drop, every single one of my theories quickly fell apart. And one day as AB news continues to drop and we talking everything that's going down in the group chat, I pick up my phone and I start to type. I say, you know what? Some men just want to watch the world burn. That was the only way I could describe this man's moves. So my new theory became that he was basically Heath Ledger's Joker. Now, obviously that's a little tongue in cheek, but by the end of it, I realized that even that theory was incorrect. Still, one of the Joker's most famous monologues come from the graphic novel The Killing Joke, where he states that one bad day is all that separates the sanest man alive from complete lunacy. In this video, we discuss how for Antonio Brown, that day could have been January 9th, 2016, when he took this hit from Vontaze Burfict. Let's discuss. Cue the wing. Yo, real quick before we jump into the video, I have to give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, SeatGeek. If you want to go and check out any of your favorite NFL players not named Antonio Brown, you can do so using the SeatGeek app. They aggregate tickets from all over the internet, making your buying experience very, very simple. Adding to the simplicity, they grade each ticket on a scale from 1 to 10 so that you can quickly assess the value of each deal, and they allow you to preview the view of your seats right from the app. If you want to download the SeatGeek app, all you gotta do, click the link in the description and don't forget to use my code FlemLo for $20 off your first purchase. Let's get it. Now, I've covered this in another video, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on AB's backstory. Still, it's important, so I'm gonna go through it really quick. Antonio Brown is the son of Eddie Brown, an arena football legend, but AB's parents split up when he was younger, and his mom and her new boyfriend ended up kicking AB out of the house while he was still in high school. AB doesn't speak about this much, but that's a pretty traumatic event that took place early on in AB's life. As you would expect, AB played football and ran track at his high school in Miami, Florida. He was named North Athlete of the Year in 2005, and don't forget, back then, AB played quarterback. After high school, AB was gonna attend Florida State, but he was unable to attend because his grades were not up to par. He instead ended up going to North Carolina Tech Prep School for a year. There, his per game averages were as follows: 250 yards passing per game and 90 yards rushing per game. In a 5-game season, he scored 13 touchdowns. From there, he ended up getting an offer to FIU, but was expelled before the season even started for getting into an altercation with the security guard. Now, some might point to this and say, look, see, there is the behavior early on, well before the infamous hit from Vontaze Burfict. While that's possible, there's not a whole lot of people that I know that I grew up with who has not had an altercation with the security guard. I used to have them all the time. Dude comes up, they're always trying to flex their authority. You're young, you got a lot of testosterone. It happens. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying at that point, it's normal. But as he does throughout this story, after being kicked off the team, fittingly, the former FIU Panther always seems to land on his feet. Now, fun fact, that's actually a myth, and while cats do have a reflex that allows them to usually land on their feet, the bigger the cat is, the less flexible they are, which makes it much more difficult for them to actually land on their feet. And the irony in that is just crazy, because the bigger AB gets, he kind of keeps landing on his feet, Eventually, it gets a little too big, and he can no longer pull it off. It's crazy. Anyway, after being cut, AB walked on at Central Michigan, where he played wide receiver like his pop. The transition was pretty seamless, as AB earned a scholarship after only a couple of weeks at the school at a new position. Now, to be fair, even back then, you could see some of AB's bad behavior from today start to kind of rear his head a little bit. Obviously, we already talked about the argument with the security guard, but then even after he lands on his feet at Central Michigan, there are reported incidents of him being late for meetings and even being late for practice on a couple of occasions. So accountability with AB was always an issue. Despite all of that, dude was named Freshman of the Year in his first season at Central Michigan. There, he averaged 100 receptions per year, 1,000 receiving yards per year, and 7 touchdowns per season during his 3-year run at the school. After 3 years, he decided to enter the draft. At the NFL Combine, he measured in at 5'10" and then ran a high 4.4, like 4.48. Had he gone to a larger school and people felt he was proven and then put up those numbers, that'd be fine. But because he went to a smaller school, he was gonna have to really wow people at the Combine. He had average numbers and ended up falling all the way down to the 6th round in the draft. He was drafted by the Steelers, and from 2010 to 2018, dude was a beast for the team. 7 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pros, led the league in receptions and wide receiver yards on multiple occasions. I mean, you can't deny the dude's productivity. Everything seemed to be going great for AB. Any trouble he was getting into at that point was being well insulated by the Steelers organization. But then on January 9, 2016, AB took a vicious hit from then Bengal Vontaze Burfict. That hit caused a concussion that effectively ended AB's season. Now, this is anecdotal evidence at best, but it is a fact that the majority of AB's issues came after this hit, and they seem to ramp up consistently after the hit. This has led many people, including myself, to speculate that AB could be suffering from CTE, a very serious brain disease caused by trauma to the head. While I'm sure AB was a headache for the organization at times prior to the hit, he obviously wasn't too much trouble, as they had given him a big contract extension and he'd been there being super productive for almost 10 years at that point. But almost immediately after the hit, he starts doing things that the organization simply cannot insulate. Now, we can only speculate about this because CTE can only be diagnosed after a person has passed away. And when I've listened to different doctors talk about this online, the majority of them have stated that AB's bizarre behavior is most likely not due to CTE. Now, CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and chronic in this case means it builds up over time. Traumatic because it's caused by trauma to the head, and then there's encephalopathy, which is encephalopathy. The main reason that most of these guys are saying that it's likely not CTE is because of the first word, chronic, which just means that it's a progressive disease, right? So it gets worse over time. And given AB's age of 31, they say it's unlikely that this would be affecting him so soon. But I mean, the hit was 3 years ago, so it's not that soon. And his behavior does seem to get increasingly bizarre over time. Not to mention, most likely the main reason that this hasn't been found in more young football players is because, again, you can't diagnose it until after they pass. So generally, the player's a little bit older before that happens. But when Aaron Hernandez passed when he was 27, he was found to have severe CTE. So that whole reasoning doesn't make any sense to me. Again, there is no way to prove that he does have CTE, but there's no way to prove that he doesn't at this point either. So I guess that gets us nowhere. But let's at least look at the symptoms and see if they line up with his behavior. So there's a ton of symptoms, but the 3 we're gonna focus on here: impaired judgment, aggression, impulse control issue. Now, you could deduce that AB always had many of these feelings and many of these issues before the hit, but now he doesn't seem to be able to stop himself from spewing every emotion he ever feels in front of millions of people. Like, all of these problems that may have already existed seem to now be amplified by a large degree. Also, immediately following the hit, AB kind of got into this space where he just really was prioritizing being a celebrity over everything else. It's kind of strange. Here's a timeline of events that show kind of how desperate he got to just be as famous as possible. A few months after he was knocked out of the game with that vicious concussion, he competed on Dancing with the Stars. Seems like an odd move coming off a concussion, but not a huge deal, and he finished 4th. Cool. AB inked a 6-figure deal with Facebook to create content. So he's a content creator now. That's fine until you decide that one of those pieces of content needs to be the infamous Facebook live stream. If you're not familiar, January 2017, the Steelers beat the Chiefs in the AFC divisional round 18-16. AB pulls out his phone and live streams the team post-game celebration, including Mike Tomlin's post-game speech. This is obviously very poor judgment. It caught Mike Tomlin throwing profanity at the Patriots, which was their next opponent. And while of course that is extremely normal in a locker room, it is meant for the locker room. I even think video is a bad idea, but at least it can be edited. A live stream? Come on, bro. In 2018, Antonio finds himself on the cover of Madden 19. Then he does a series of videos with several different YouTubers, which was all a part of the Madden campaign. What was Antonio getting out of this? Of course, he's still looking to grow his brand and become as relevant as possible online. Now, in 2018, things really started to escalate. Antonio gets sued for throwing items off a balcony 14 floors up and allegedly nearly hitting a child. The child was like 2 years old and wasn't actually hit, but the guardian decided to sue anyway. Regardless to how you feel about that, I don't think a person in their right mind becomes angry and starts to throw furniture off of a balcony 14 floors up. And all of this without even considering the possibility that people could be walking down there. That's pretty crazy, all just because you got pissed off about something. Later that same year, he and Ben Roethlisberger get into it. In response, AB skips practice for the rest of the week, and Mike Tomlin can't even get in contact with dude from Wednesday all the way until Sunday morning, where they're set to play a game. That Sunday, AB's agent, not AB, but AB's agent calls Mike Tomlin saying AB is ready to play. And of course, Tomlin can't let that happen after dude's been away for a whole week. AB blames the team, doesn't take any accountability, and never suits up for the Steelers again. On February 12, 2019, he took to social media to demand a trade from the team that he played his whole career for, and at that time says that he's completely willing to walk away from football. Around this time, AB ironically even begins to look like the Joker with this crazy look with the dyed mustache. As far as I know, he never offered an explanation for the look, but I mean, bro, he did interviews and attended events like this, and I honestly admired his bravery, but I never understood exactly what would make a person do this. I tried to understand it, I really did, but I just, I really couldn't come up with much. In hindsight, maybe he's just leaning into that Joker persona. I don't know. Moving forward, the Raiders trade a couple picks for AB, and dude gets a $50 million contract with $30 million guaranteed after rocking this look. I mean, what a GOAT. But then things get even more bizarre. First, AB burns his feet in a cryotherapy machine. First I've ever heard of that. Sounded crazy, but at this point I felt, listen, AB's got control of the situation. Dude's a workout warrior. He just took his recovery a little too far, had a mishap. Okay, cool, whatever, he'll be back. Simultaneously, we're dealing with the helmet situation, and the helmet situation, it is really like the thing that let me know that it wasn't about the money. Let me explain. AB's helmet he wore his whole career was no longer covered under the safety guidelines of the league, and he made the absolute biggest deal out of this possible. You'd think a guy who took a hit like this would want to make sure his head was safe, but instead he just clung to the past and did not want to change his helmet. He even threatened to retire if they would not allow him to wear it. Once that happened, I was like, okay, it's not about the money. He's gonna leave $30 million on the table over a helmet? That's crazy. Then he somehow practices alchemy, and once again, AB landing on his feet, it's insane. Over this whole crazy helmet debacle, this dude lands a deal with Zenith, who gives him a custom helmet fitted exactly how he wants and pays him a bag to wear it. Wow, so he's got his $30 million guaranteed, he threw a fit, he got a whole lot more attention, and now he's got a new helmet and a new helmet deal to show for it. But he never gets to wear the helmet. Now there's so much stuff the dude does, so I'm really just kind of covering the major events just so he can get through this. He gets into it with the general manager of the team. Mike Mayock has some choice words for him. Actually has the nerve to be upset with the team for not having his back when they supported him through one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. Anyway, gets kicked out of the facility, and then I think the same night he drops this crazy ass video. Like this video, bro, like honestly, I didn't know what to make of this. It's incredibly ambiguous. It doesn't really mean anything, but it is very provocative. Like it's amazingly edited. It's just, what is it about? Then in the video, he's taped a phone conversation between himself and his head coach, John Gruden. He has that in the background of this crazy video. At that point, I go to the group chat and I say, He'll be cut by morning. He'll never see that $30 million. Morning rolls around, he's cut. What an idiot, right? I don't know. Let's see. He gets picked up by the Patriots, and we find out that if he just behaves for 2 years, he'll get that $30 million back, plus, probably 2 Super Bowls. He's still landing on his feet, and at this point, I'm just impressed. The dude is even filming when he finds out he's going to the Patriots, gives this crazy reaction. It's like he's almost living in a fantasy world at this point. Everything is for social media. How long were they filming him as he waited to get this text just for this little piece of content? So he gives up a guaranteed $30 million for a non-guaranteed $30 million. He's gonna get like 9 guaranteed from the Patriots. Okay, is legacy actually important to him? Is winning actually important to do? I mean, he just forced his way to the Patriots. Then these sexual assault allegations start to arise. Now, if you read beyond the headlines, the first allegation seemed pretty shaky. The lady said he sexually assaulted her 3 times over like 2 years. But even after the alleged first 2 times, she was over his house again, laying on the couch watching TV in order for a 3rd time to happen. That doesn't really add up. But then there was another allegation. And like right now, he's burned every bridge. Everybody thinks he is a supervillain, and this stuff starts to come out, and it's just like nobody's gonna have any patience or any tolerance for you at this point. And you did that to yourself. You burned through your benefit of the doubt with petty nonsense. Now when some serious stuff comes around, you've used up all your chances on stuff that didn't even make any sense. Still, he's got money, he's got lawyers, he can sit back, continue to play the game, and let the lawyers deal with that until the day comes where, he's got to either pay some money or do some jail time or whatever might have happened. Instead, this man sends a threatening text message to the alleged victim, as if he does not know how text messages actually work. In this text message, he is said to have sent her like pictures of her kids. Like, I don't know how he expected that to play out. So that message that he sent, along with everything else that dude's got going on, saw him released from the Patriots. He lost that Zenith helmet deal and pretty much undid everything he had built up over his 9-year career in like a few weeks. At this point, I go back to my Joker comparison, and I'm like, yeah, doesn't add up. He's not an agent of chaos. He doesn't just want to watch the world burn. He's not Heath Ledger's Joker at all. Heath Ledger's Joker was crazy for sure, but he was in control. He engineered chaos in order to get a specific outcome. AB seems anything but in control. He's more Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, the newest version of the Joker, the movie that I think comes out next month. If you're not aware, that movie features a Joker who has a mental illness that he is aware of. The illness, however, goes pretty much ignored by the world around him. He even writes in the trailer that the worst part of having a mental illness is that people want you to behave as if you don't. Time passes, he doesn't get the help he needs. He spirals, and eventually dude goes full Joker. So I say AB may have more in common with that Joker, because with the pride and ego of a fully sane person lead to his behavior over the past couple of years? I don't think so. So while I definitely can't prove that perfect hit caused AB's spiral, I also know for a fact that nobody can prove that it didn't. And I think January 9th, 2016, the day he took that hit from Vontaze Burfict, could have been AB's one bad day that drove him into chaos. Yeah.